Hello everyone, it looks like we are live. Let's put this one on. Let me change this over. Tonight is going to be a little bit different. I'm actually kind of excited because, there's only 8 of us. So I'm only excited for 8 of us. We all need to be extra excited because there's 8 of us tonight live. Anyway, 10 now. Okay, so if you've been watching my live streams for a while, which I think you guys probably have, I bought these auto stretcher bars for stretching watercolor canvas years ago. Like, I don't even remember when. It's been a while and I never tried them. What they do is lock in, you can't, where's one here? Okay, let's actually back this up. So here's the problem with stretching watercolor paper and why you might want to or consider it. If you're using the heavier weight 300-pound watercolor paper, it's not going to be as big of a problem with your paper buckling. But if you're using a lighter weight paper, and actually let me show you how bad this can be on, is it in here? Trying to think if it's in, it might be in here. I have a piece that I really like, but I'm not super comfortable selling it because, actually, is audio on? You guys can hear me, right? Okay. And some coffee while I'm at it. Decaf this time. Let's see. I have one that's still in here that I painted years ago. This one's medium bad. That's not terrible. Let me see if I can find, there's a specific one that was so bad and I airbrushed it. So it wasn't even like it was that much water, but it buckled so freaking bad. I don't know where it is. Okay, I'm not digging more out. I'll show you guys this one. But if you've used watercolor, you know what, you know. So this one's actually not terrible. This is 140 pound. And let me see, can you even, I don't know if you can see. Maybe on the back, you can, no, yeah. You can kind of see where it's buckled, it's bending, it's not so flat. There, you can actually kind of see there more. This one would not be any trouble. Like, I mean, it's the main buckling is actually right in here. This one was Inktense. And with this, if I frame it, it's fine. I mean, it's Inktense, so I'm not selling it anyway. This one's fine. But I did one years ago of a bird, and I airbrushed the background, and it worked. So, I'm surprised I can't find it. I'm pretty sure it's in this box, but I've got so much in there. I'm not going to waste any more time looking for it. But it buckled so bad that it was airbrush background, colored pencil in the foreground. Even just from the airbrush, I used so much water in it that the paper buckled so bad, I really can't sell it. I mean, maybe if I frame it and can kind of flatten it out, but I mean, it is bad. So in that one came a lot of the watercolor blocks. I'm using the Arches hot press watercolor paper, and it comes in blocks, and you can paint in the block. And usually, in theory, when you paint in the block, it's not going to warp that bad. 300 pound, definitely true. 140 pound, if you're like me and you have a tendency to go a bit crazy with water, it buckles bad. And like I said, it's not just for watercolor, because the one that's one of the worst I've ever had buckle was airbrush background and colored pencil foreground, and it was bad. So if we can stretch the watercolor, even though when you buy it, it says pre-stretched. Not pre-stretched enough. It's still going to warp. So what are your alternatives? Tape it down. But as you use a lot of water, the tape is going to come loose. So that's not so helpful. And that's if you didn't pre-stretch it. Next, stretch it or size it where you put it in water and soak it for like 5-10 minutes and like really let it saturate. And then you put it on a board, and there's a type of tape that you use. I have some over there. It's just water. You get the tape wet and you put it down, and that has like a 50-50 chance of staying stuck. Okay, so that's not a great method if half the time you go through the trouble of stretching the paper and laying it out, that's going to come loose. So another way a lot of artists will do is they will take a stapler and staple all the way around the edge and tape it. It's like watercolors trying to convince me not to use it, because I am not going through that much trouble. I'm a lazy artist, and that is just not happening. So when I saw these auto stretcher bars, these I thought were pretty interesting. I bought a 3-pack. I think mine was the number 2 one. It's like I don't even think that the price went up. I'm pretty sure that's what I paid for it at the time. They were like $250 right now for 3, so kind of expensive. Trust me, I get it. I am not sponsored. I've never talked to this guy. I just saw it online, thought it was cool, bought it, and figured I'd give it a shot. So this stuff, with this one, the way it works, there's little pins, funnily enough. So they're these little, I don't even know what they're called. I forget what this type of tool is called. But it's these little shaped guys that you twist and turn, like the little keys. It came with this really nice key. I'm almost positive I threw it away thinking it was from like when I built an IKEA shelf or something and I didn't need it because I didn't use them for so long. I didn't even remember that's what it was for. It might be somewhere. I don't know. I remember seeing it and thinking I don't need this, but luckily I have a lot of those tools, so it's not the end of the world. But anyway, you pull these off and I'll show you on this one. They just unscrew. And actually, I'll show you in just a moment how they unscrew. But I want to also give you, if you do get this, kind of a, not a warning, just don't do what I did. So, Ellen Wrench, yes, thank you, Nick. So that these will, the bars come off, and I'll show you that in a moment. And you put the wet paper, you soak it, you put it on the board, you clamp these down, and these stay in place. Now, again, I've never used it. Tonight's my first try. And you paint with them in the board. That's the part I'm not sure if I'm gonna love, because I like when it's flat and I can rest my hand easier. It's not a super high ridge, but you can see there's a little bit of a gappy, or you know, it's lifted a little bit there. So we'll see how I enjoy that. I think that the lazy in me, like if this works really well, the fact that I'm so lazy will outweigh the fact that I don't like that it's raised a little bit. I think I'll end up being fine that it's raised a little bit. But anyway, so that's the concept behind these. Seems great. Again, never used it. I tried it. I stretched 2 pieces of paper last night for the first time. This one, and the sizes are a little bit weird. The size on this one, actually I have it pulled up. The smaller one that I have is 11 by 15. So you have to have your paper a little bit bigger than what you want to stretch. So if you bought 11 by 14, that's not going to work. I need a bigger paper and I have to cut it down to size. So I'm kind of like, I'm sure there was a reason he did that. I just don't know what that reason was. I wish that it was like the exact standard size. But he gave us a little bit of extra room there. And again, I'm sure there's a reason. I just don't know what that reason is. The next size, this one, 15 by 22 and then a 22 by 30. I'm pretty sure those are all the sizes I have. Those aren't standard sizes, so I had to cut my paper, which again, I'm lazy. I don't want to cut paper. So anyway, there we go. It's not that the cutting paper is that big of a deal. But here's the thing. When I cut the paper, because I couldn't just use, rip it out of a standard size pad, I didn't do a great job cutting it, and I went a little bit too tall on the bigger one. Now, luckily, this was kind of a scratch paper. It had Inktense. I think this one had Inktense on the back, because I'm not going to waste a perfectly fresh piece of paper if I'm going to screw it up royally. But these, I had a little bit of excess on the top here, and I don't know if you can see. It's already buckled here. Like I stretched that for 10 minutes, 11 minutes technically. You can kind of see where it's buckled here. That is not a problem with the stretcher bar. That is a problem. That is a user error issue because I was a hair too long. And so when I put the bars in, it pushed down on it, and I didn't realize that when it was wet. I knew I was too tall on that side, but I'm pretty sure it's on the side that I was too tall on. Let's take this off and find out. But let's go ahead and take a look at, we're just going to, that is not the right size. This one, maybe. So these just loosen up. You don't have to undo them all the way. It's actually pretty fast. The smaller one I had a much easier time with, probably because I cut it the right size. But see, these just come right off, super easy. How many times can I say I'm having an night. But they just go on that way. Oh, interesting. The side that buckled isn't the side that was too long. It was the other side. So I don't know. That's weird because it's just, I don't know if it really should. You can kind of see there how buckled this paper is. I apparently failed at stretching it. But like I said, when I put it on last night, I knew I didn't do a great job of getting this one on there, and I was tired and I didn't care anymore. So you would not want your paper, like in my case, it was a little bit on one side too tall for the board. It has to be cut to the actual size of the board in order for that to not, I'm guessing that's why it buckled, because like I said, I knew when I put this on last night. How this goes on, once the paper is wet, you do this flat. It just slides right on, and then you tighten it. It's so simple compared to messing with the tape method or go on there? I don't have you open enough there. The tape or the staples and the tape and all of those things. So I have high hopes for this because the smaller one is perfectly flat. Now the other thing that I want to test, I have a tendency when I use masking fluid, which I use tonight, I go friggin' heavy with that. Like I just slather it on so I don't miss a spot. Not necessarily the most economical way to do it, but it is what I do. That will warp the paper really bad. Like that will warp it worse in my experience on 140 pound. I've warped paper worse doing that than using tons of water. So I'm really curious to see what happens when I take it off. You can see on this one, there is my masking fluid. I did not put masking fluid everywhere on this guy because a lot of his fins are very translucent and I want whatever my background color is to be like in those fins. So that is why the masking fluid is only in a couple of places. When I edit this, I did record part of the masking fluid, but I do want to show you really quick. The easiest way to use masking fluid is to get one of these little pen guys. I don't even think I put it on my list. It's a masking fluid pen. I need to clean mine. It's just now drying. And you dip this into your masking fluid, and then you just draw everything in. Don't push hard because we don't want to score the paper, but you just fill in. You can get nice long straight lines. It's much easier. I've used the paintbrush in the past because I never bought one of these. I finally broke down and got one. Yeah, it was worth it. You can use a paintbrush, but the paintbrushes, it's not so easy to get the masking fluid back off. You can kind of, depending on how good of condition you want that paintbrush to be back in afterwards. But this is definitely the easiest of all the ways I've tried. I've also tried the way where it's got like a little rubber end to paint on that way. This is going to hold more so you get that nice long line. Definitely recommend these. This is the cheapest one I found on Amazon. I want to say I paid like, I don't know, it was way less than $10, like way less. And I got two little eraser things, and I'll show you how to use these or why these are so necessary for masking fluid. And then it came with this too. So super cheap. This doesn't open like it's supposed to. It opens a little. Like seriously, it's crap. But it worked. So let's see. We have, oh, somebody had contacted me about my website being down. Let me make sure we got that sorted. Okay, yeah, okay, so that is where we're at today. That is what we're doing. My masking fluid, I probably should have let set a little bit longer. I put it on right before we started, so it might end up, I don't know if it's gonna smudge. It tends to smudge when I take it off. Okay, and you are recording, we are good. So, and one of the things that's really annoying, you can't really see it. Okay, so there's these little nubs on the easel that your canvas, it sets it off the easel as you're painting. This is the exact, like it barely hits both of them. I'm gonna be fighting it with this and complaining about it all night. Okay, so for my background, I am going to be using my Schmincke watercolors and my Aqua bronze. Color Aqua bronze, I haven't even chosen one. Ooh, that's pretty. I've got my actual copper color, which is always what I think of when I think of Aqua bronze more than the gold. I think I want gold for this guy. Let me grab that. I've got a few of these. I've got silver, I've got pale gold, rich pale gold, or rich gold. I'm thinking either rich gold or rich pale gold. Okay, this is actually my new Betta, and he is one of our Patreon reference photos from last month that I have not uploaded yet because I decided on the day that I was supposed to upload them, or like that week I was supposed to do it is when my back went out. So look, I can sit again, so it's pretty exciting. I spent the week, we'll do a quick update because I haven't talked to you guys and it feels like way too long. My foot being broken, the type of arthritis I have works best the more I walk. So my foot was broken, 6 weeks of no walking, and then 6 weeks of walking with that boot so you're off center, which is like horrible for your back. Thank God my back made it through that. But last week, it went out on Monday. I woke up, like agony is the only word I can think. I've never experienced back pain like this. Like I was having the spasms. I've never had spasms before. My mom would always ask me, because my mom has the same condition I do. She would always ask, oh, or did you have spasms whenever I said my back went out or I was having problems? I'm like, well, spasms, what are you talking about? I don't think so. I don't know what that is. Oh, I know what it is now. Like that is an unmistakable. So that was terrible. But I couldn't sit because one of the things that is not good for my back is sitting. So that's why I couldn't work or do anything. But I was so bored all week. I was on the painkillers for my foot that I never took when my foot broke. Oh, I took them for my back. But I took those, and that really, really helped. But it still, like, I still couldn't sit to work or get anything done. So that's why you don't have your photos yet. But I did get a lot of stuff around the house done because I'm like looking for something. I organized my garage. Like, I played garage Tetris and reorganized. I got my miter saw set up, which I've never used before, but he's set up. I could use him now. Yeah, so I got caught up on stuff that's been put off because I couldn't do it when my foot was broken and I just never got to it. So I'm kind of excited that that stuff got done. What a boring week. I just wanted to work. I am not one, I don't like to just, and I couldn't like just sit and watch TV or something. I couldn't sit. That was the whole problem. So yeah, it was a week. But anyway, moral of that story, I did not get, that is why I don't think I've ever been late. Like, I've always gotten it by the last day of the month for those Patreon reference photos. This is the first time I'm like, there's nothing I could do about it because I couldn't sit. So I've got a bunch of reference photos, my own animals. This is my new Betta Ben. New Ben, I named them all Ben. Bettas don't live that long, so I just name them all Ben and pretend he just got a new outfit because that's how I deal with being a crazy lady and being sad when a fish dies. So anyway, new Ben has, that is the photos from him. And the photo that you see on the screen, beautiful angle, it's blurry. Of course it's blurry. My really clear ones were all with him at the side. So that's why I've provided two photos for you. You can go with whichever one for getting the colors that you want to. But remember with a Betta, I mean, they come in so many different colors. You can find a photo of another Betta you like its color, but you like this position. You can mix and match. You can do whatever colors you want. You don't have to stick with what this one is at all. So that is very fun. But I've got other photos. I've got several red-eye tree frog photos that are, I'm super excited to share with you guys. Got some really neat ones. Glitch is adorable. What else? A lot of fish. You're getting a lot of fish photos for this one. So I need to, now that I can sit, I need to get that edited hopefully this weekend, and that will be up for you. And hopefully once it cools down in Texas, we can go ahead and, now that I can walk, I can go to the zoo and get you new photos that way. So hopefully all this drama is behind us and we can move forward. Anyway, so let's get painting. Now with watercolor, it is 100% better if you paint with the board being flat so that the watercolor, the way that it spreads. Because of my back, I can't look down. Like, even doing that right now, I feel the strain in it. It's not good. I can't look down for any length of time. So that's one of the main reasons I will never be I'm never going to master the traditional methods of watercolor, because I just can't sit that way. But that doesn't mean that I can't paint something very pretty that isn't using necessarily traditional techniques. So if you're able to sit working flat, that is absolutely going to be better for you. But again, not an option for me. Oh, I forgot my spray bottle. I guess I could do it with being lazy. No, I need to go grab the spray bottle. Hold on, let me go grab that. I've got a spray bottle with distilled water in it. My jumping spiders drink that too, so it's in on my desk. Let me go grab that. Okay, for watercolor, we want to use distilled water. Really, anytime you're doing anything with acrylics, it doesn't matter. I've never found it to affect acrylics, but there's so much crap in our water, it can affect your watercolors or your paper. It can cause discoloration. I always use distilled. I don't always do it with Inktense just because I don't sell that, so I'm not super worried about, like, it's not all light fast, so I don't really worry there. But if you want it to last longer, distilled water is always going to be your safest bet. Even with my brain shut down, water soluble graphite, that you should be using distilled water for sure. Here I'm going to be using distilled water. Okay, so what color? I never even decided what color I wanted to use behind him. He's got yellow. He's like yellow and goldfish, or I'm sorry, teal and gold. I was thinking maybe a magenta because of the yellows would be pretty for the background, just like a splash of color in the water. I didn't want to leave the paper white because I want to try using a lot of water just to really put these stretcher bars. And I'll be taking it off the stretcher bar tonight. So we're going to find out how well it holds up to my terrible techniques with watercolor. What color? Purple's always safe. Like somewhere between purple and magenta maybe. Where is, I should have, and I apparently have not set that up. It's been too long since I've, like even skipping 1 week of live streaming, but really it feels more like 3 weeks because we had 2 weeks in the office with the critiques. I do not have everything set up or everything ready that I need. Hold on, let me, sit on the floor and see if I can find, I should have, is that it? Yes, that is it. Okay. Let's see what colors I like out of here. I have my board with my, or my paper with my colors. I am thinking, I really like this one here, 447. So 1, 2, 3, or this, ooh, that's real. Yeah. Hold on. I hear French fry, and I should not hear French fry unless Matt just went to get him. Yeah, he must have went and got him. I think he just picked him up to have his play date with Nugget. But he was making so much noise that it concerned me where it's like, okay, is he hurt? Does he need something? Why is he having a fit? I think he was just excited to see Nugget. Okay, back to color choices. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with this one. So that is this color here, the second one over. Now this chart is really handy. I have marked on it my light fast rating, so 4 or 3 star. This one's a 2 star, the indigo. I will not use that in pretty much anything unless it's a sketchbook. But I've got my star rating, my number, because obviously I can't tell what color is in here. I just make sure that way, like if I need to reorder some, it makes it really easy to keep that little list. Okay, second one over. I don't even have my paintbrushes out. My gosh, I am not prepared. At least I had the masking fluid done. I was pretty proud of myself for getting that done early. Oh Lord, I don't need all these brushes. Let's just grab a couple of these. Now, watercolor is much, much more sensitive to the quality of your brushes than any other medium. Like oils, acrylics, I go with the cheap stuff. I do not spend a lot of money on my brushes. Well, for one thing, I'm really hard on them. But, ooh, I have this big brush I don't think I've ever used. This is a Mimic brush, the Mimic Creative Mark. These brushes are really nice. So I'm going to use that. But the quality of your brushes will make a difference with watercolor in a way that you will not experience in other mediums. Like it is crazy. Even Inktense, I can use super cheapy brushes with Inktense and it's no problem. Watercolor, not so much. So this is my distilled water over here. And I am gonna mix, actually, I'm gonna use this to get the paper wet and then I'm gonna apply the paint with a smaller brush. Not you. Well, I guess you could work. I'm gonna let mine be really streaky and just kind of run down. I'm gonna let the watercolor just do what the watercolor wants to do since I am working upright. I think that will make my life easier. So tonight, I thought I pulled out, yeah, there it is. This is the brush I want. So I'm gonna get some of my magenta mixed over here, the color I chose. I can't tell you what it is. I can tell you the number, the Schmincke number 368. I'll probably pull a little bit of another purpley color in there, or maybe blue. Which blue would be pretty with that? Do I want blue? Yeah, you know what? Maybe a little bit of blue. So that would be, you're this one. This one's pretty. Yeah, you or you, either of these, or maybe both. I don't know. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just add water, and I am gonna go right over, oh geez. So that actually kind of works out okay. My water is super dirty. You can see the color on it. That's another thing. Watercolor matters if your water is clean or not. I'm not upset about having this tint to it, so I don't really care. Plus this is mainly just experimenting night. But that would be an issue if I did not want that blue tint on everything. I want to keep that wet, so I'm going to go pretty quick. But yeah, my watercolor is super dirty. I'm just going to make a mess, let it just run and do its thing. I want it going in the fins because, like I said, those fins have that like really, it almost looks like cellophane. This fish is gorgeous. Let's pull some of that blue. I don't want that settling so much on the fins. So like around it was collecting right here because I'm working upright around the masking fluid. So I need to make sure to blend that out. This is a lot of water. If this, like it's already buckling, which is to be expected, but if it dries back in place, I'm going to be super happy. Let's grab some more of this blue. I said, Lisa, in your color selections, can you please discuss a little bit about the warm, cool pick? Why did I pick the color blue I did? Because it's pretty. Here's the thing. We kind of talked about this in a recent video or in the live stream. Lily was a great example. Wait, yeah, I think it was Lily. She was taking a color theory class, and it made her artwork suffer from color theory issues. Which is like, what? How do you take, like, how do they, that's it's a problem with the teacher, not the student. The teacher is not explaining things in a way that made sense. We tend to overthink the importance of warm and cool. It doesn't matter. Do they look pretty together? Trust your taste. I am not a big one for getting too much. I mean, yes, color theory matters some, but we have a tendency to we give it way more value, way more importance than what it deserves. I'm gonna spray some water on this and let it run. Just gonna let that run a bit. Actually, I'm gonna let the darks go where they go. I'm just gonna let it do what it does. I don't even care. But so here's the thing. I've looked at teaching lessons on color theory. The reason that I don't, it's so hard to word it in a way that doesn't make it more complicated. Color theory absolutely plays a role. Not as much as what people are trying. It's kind of like color in general. I feel like people are overcomplicating it to the point where it no longer makes sense. And people are just like, well, I can't do this. It doesn't look good. I'm going to sop up a little bit where it's soaking here. I can't do this. This is beyond me. It doesn't really make sense. When I try following the color theory, I end up creating mud. That is what I typically see with color theory online, with YouTube videos, with teachers teaching out of like Hobby Lobby or Michael's. Like, I'm not saying that's going to be the case for a college class. I think that they can that's one thing that I think may, if you've got a good teacher, be helpful. But most color theory experts make things so much harder for the student than if you just said, pick a color that you think looks nice together. You got into art because you had good taste. Let your taste, like, let it make the choices. Like, do you think this green looks nice with that purple? Somebody else might not. Color theory doesn't even matter. The fact that you like it means somebody else is going to like it too. We way are going too much into trying to overanalyze and overcomplicate. I think that's the problem I have with it. And this is what I've seen with books too, because I've looked for books. Because I'm like, I want to learn more too. They will they word it in a way that makes it so much more complicated to paint and make something pretty than it needs to be. It's crazy to me. I'm reading this going, this is nonsense. You're speaking gibberish that is going to make students go, I can't do it. I give up. And that's my biggest problem, why I don't really get into it, because there's a science to it. Most of us who get into art, we're not always, some people are, but not all of us creatives are really into the science and the math side of things. Again, some people are, some people are not. I am not. I'm going to go by what looks good. You should be able to look at something and go, yeah, I like that. No, I don't like that. Honestly, that's my color theory. That is what I go with. Yes, there are certain things, and I talk about this, warm, something cool. So these colors are going to be cooler. That blue is pushing a little warm because it's going towards purple. But anyway, I'm going to go, he has more of the yellows and the oranges, these warm tones, and that is going to help bring him forward. Whereas cooler tones are going to be pushed back some. The more reds, so, and it gets complicated anyway, because you look at the color wheel and you're like, okay, this one's more towards red, so we're moving towards warm, but there are cool and warm reds. There are cool and warm blues. There are cool and warm of everything, depending on what like undertones are mixed in with that. It gets very complicated, and I just don't think, I think it holds people back more than helps most students. That's why I don't go into it, because I try to simplify things. As I'm just sopping up little bits where it's kind of collecting a bit too much. I try to make things as simple as possible for students, and color theory does the exact opposite. I think that it overcomplicates it and frustrates people without seeing much, if any, benefit at all. If you mix two colors and you're like, oh, those look terrible, you can look up like this color plus this color, why did this come out with mud? And Google's going to tell you why. Like, oh, this one's a warmer, this is a cooler. I honestly can't look at my colors and go that, or like the names. I don't remember which ones are which. I just go by, I think that looks nice. But anyway, that is why I feel like color theory is something that you get a lot of people who want to debate things and analyze things and get into the psychology of things. I don't care. I want to create. I want to do. I want to make it happen. I don't think everything needs to be analyzed to that extent. I don't think it's that helpful. Like, okay, rule of thirds. I actually think the rule of thirds is really helpful because it's so simple. But there are people who go too much by the rule of thirds, and they just are dependent on that is the only way. If it doesn't fall within the rule of thirds, they think it's bad, and that is just not the case. I'm trying to think of how to word this. It is a tool. Color theory is a tool. It's not something that I think you need to study or be obsessed with in order to create amazing artwork. I think basically understanding more bluish tints in the background are going to look like they're further away. Your more yellowish tints in the foreground, your warmer colors are going to look closer to the viewer. But there are times where you've got warm tones in the back by a sunset, and you end up with a reverse. So there are times where you still create depth using the reverse. I think that quick color theory tips, quick tips, I think are helpful. But overly getting involved when you start really trying to dissect it, I think that you make the act of painting, the act of creating so complicated that it's no longer enjoyable. And in many cases, it can make your artwork look worse because you're worrying about the wrong thing. You're so worried about color, you're not paying enough attention to values. Values are what matter. Are your darks dark, and if your light's light enough? Cool tones in the back, warm tones up front, more blue in the back. For landscapes, that's going to be a bigger deal. But if you're painting up close, something like this, it really doesn't matter. Go with what you think is pretty. I just think these colors are going to look pretty with this fish. The end. I could have used green and made it pretty. I could have used any single color, like any colors I could have made work with this. If I get my values right, I can make it look cool no matter what colors I chose. So, yeah, I think that... Yeah, I think color theory in general, it's not something that you're going to see me go too far into because I'm trying to simplify things as much as possible and just help you guys make the best paintings possible and not overcomplicate it. Okay. Yeah, Lachri's such a good example of that. I may beg you to use your paintings. Like, you are such a good example of your artwork, phenomenal. And we've seen this. You can go back and watch the older live streams with the critiques. Her work is amazing. And when you explain something to Lachri, she understands. She's like, oh, let me fix that. And she does it, and it's great. It's exactly. Lachri follows directions, and this is why I'm bringing this up. She follows directions very well. She understands art talk. She understands. She took a class in color theory, and she submitted it for the last critique, and I was so freaking confused because I'm like, this isn't Lachri's work. Lachri has good taste. Lachri mixes color well. Lachri gets a good balance. I mean, there's always room for improvement. Yeah, but this is like major, like years step back. And I was so confused looking like what it looked like color theory class. Sure enough, color theory class is what did it. The teacher, I'm going to blame the teacher. That I think the teacher did such a bad job of explaining to Lachri what she wanted her to do. She actually made art harder for her, and a lot of times people will do that. They'll take a class, it reverts, and it's not like, okay, we try something new, we're gonna take a few steps back, that's normal. This wasn't a few steps back. This was like not the same artist where I'm like, what happened? Lachri does a great job of choosing colors. I mean, we've all got areas to improve. The teacher whatever. And I mean, I obviously wasn't in the class, so I don't know what the teacher said, but I can tell you from the results that one of her students, who I know is a great student, who understands art talk, who understands when you explain something, Lily goes and does it exactly what you explained. So the fact that she left Lily with the results that Lily got was a really good example of why I do not push students to focus too heavily on and like going over the top with color theory. Besides, yeah, cool in the back, warm in the front, that'll help create depth. The end. That is the extent of, now, besides that, certain, like if you get warm mixing with cool, sometimes we'll make a muddier color. Sometimes you want that muddy color, so even that's not terrible. Okay, I'm gonna dry this. Okay, this is drying flat. Like, I think I'm gonna be, I'm excited to see what happens when I take it out of the stretcher bars at the end of the night, because I left that water and then I rambled for so long. What I should have just said is I think color theory is not as big of a deal as people make. Look how much I could have just simplified that. But this is flat. If I taped this, it would not be this flat. This is, I'm pretty excited about this because, especially like airbrushing, I don't want to buy 300-pound watercolor paper. It's expensive. I don't have the money for that. I don't know who can afford that. I am not one of those people. This is, I'm kind of excited. Seriously, this is flat. Like, oh my gosh, that is crazy. And it's not huge. So the bigger the paper is, the more it tends to warp. This is just over an 8 by 10. What is it, 8 by 11? But still, even 8 by, like, this is completely flat. Now, I think you can make your background way prettier than mine if you're working flat. I certainly wouldn't, this is not like the best background in the world. This is just me testing it. But, oh my God, like, I'm pretty excited about this right now. Now, one thing I do know too, the watercolor, it will tape go under. So like, you know how normally when you've got tape, you've got that super satisfying, you pull up the tape and the paper's all white. Not going to be the case with this. It does slide under. Jen said, what is the frame? I need one. Auto frame. So if you look at, actually, I'll put the link. I'll put it in the description. I got the value pack 2. Oh, that makes me want to save up and get the value pack 3 too. My gosh, this is, I mean, I don't really work bigger than what I got. Let me put the link. It's, that's the exact one that I got that I put in the description. It's OTTOartproducts.com is the website. And this is, like, it definitely is going to have a little bit of a learning curve because we saw where my other one was more warped. Okay, so let's talk about masking fluid. How do you easily get that off? That is what these guys are for, and they are amazing. This just sticks, like, it just pulls right up. I'm just tapping it, like dabbing on it. Now, be careful not to overdo it because your graphite lines, like I'm gonna have to redraw a lot of mine. The masking fluid tends to pull up a lot of those lines, so my lines are super thin now. Oh, look at, from the heat, it's tearing. Urgh. Let's go back to this, that's not great. I'm not sure what, if it was because it was hot. I've never had that happen. Look at, it tore the paper right here. The paper's, oh, you know why? Okay, this actually makes sense. I'm gonna paint and draw over it, so I'm not gonna like start over or anything, but I've gotta get that off. I think the paper's still wet. Yeah, it's still cool. I should have let it dry all the way. Because that paper is still wet, the paper is more sensitive or delicate. Delicate's the word I want to go. with, and so it's tearing. If that was dry all the way, so even though this was dry under it, I used so much water to test the boards, how it would go flat, that the paper itself is wet, like it got wet through the back type thing, like it soaked through. So that is why I think that just happened. I've never had that happen, but I don't normally use that much water. So I don't really care because, again, this is just a testing project. So the watercolor, when I paint there, is going to be all kinds of messed up. I'll hide it with colored pencils, so it's not a big deal. And even saying that, I should let this dry so I don't have it happen in other areas, but whatever. We're on a time limit because of, you know, live stream. But see how I can just kind of dab? It grips. It's amazing. I remember the first few times I used masking fluid, I could not get it off, and it was so frustrating. Look at that. That problem, I can tell them why it probably happened. I'm curious to see what it looks like when the paint goes over, because it's going to soak in weird to that area. There's not a hole. It just lifted some of the surface. But like I said, and so here's how you know if your paper, your watercolor is completely dry. And this is important because if it's not completely dry, you're going to get different results. Like if you go to layer over it and it's not all the way dry, you're more likely to have it lift up. If you want to layer and you don't want that previous layer lifting and creating weird blotchy, like it can look really blotchy and really terrible, you want to feel it. It's still, like, I can feel that the paper is cold to the touch. It is not dry all the way. And it's because I use so much water. But look at the other thing that I'm getting. This did not warp it. This much masking fluid on 140-pound watercolor paper always warps it for me. Like, badly. Like, it warps it more than water does, because of the way I put it on too heavy. So yeah, I'm really, really excited about this right now. Like, I'm going to use this when I airbrush a background too, which means mine are going to get super dirty, but that is crazy how flat this is. Next, I'll try it on a bigger size. I need to re-stretch. I'm not going to try it on the paper that I already didn't stretch properly. Now, I stretched my paper in distilled water, and I don't know if that's necessary, but I'm like, if we're mixing our paint and we're painting with distilled water, I don't want tap water, and I think most people just use tap water, but my city water is terrible. I don't want tap water mixing on the paper at all, so I just use distilled water for everything. But, okay, let's see. Now, I need to change my water though, because that was really dirty when I worked earlier. Let me just dump both of these and get myself a fresh batch, and I'll wipe them out too. Hold on 1 second. And let's turn the air conditioner down a little because it is absolutely really, really hot in the studio. Okay. Let me go dump these. Oh, I'm so excited about these stretcher bars right now. This is just so encouraging because it's always so frustrating. Same Inktense, watercolor, airbrush, like all of those, water-soluble graphite I can use them on. Definitely a lot of uses. So I can see too, I'm glad that I got multiple sizes. I think my biggest, well, whatever the biggest is in that 2-pack. So I have one that's a lot bigger. So I'm just drying the tap water out of this. Like, seriously, my tap water in the city is so bad. Okay. And let's fill that with more tap water. I want to see what I have to do. I'm certain this is tap water. Okay, I have to taste the top of the water bottles all the time because I use the old distilled water containers for my fish a lot, and sometimes there's salt water in them. So I'll have to taste them to make sure it's not one that I've previously put salt water in. Usually it's just RODI water, so really heavily filtered water. But Yeah, I have to double check. That should be distilled though. Okay. So what you want with watercolor is one jar. I just use these cute little mason jars because they're adorable anyway. I use one for cleaning my brushes and then one for, actually that can stay open, and one for loading initially. So it should be kept pretty clean, but I have really bad habits and don't always do that. Okay. Let's go. So now this is going to look like a hot mess right in here, which is, it's fine. I want to start, because it's watercolor, we're going to start with our lighter colors and build up to the darker colors. And a lot of this I can go over with details to clean up with colored pencil. Now, why do I use colored pencil so much? Because I'm not an amazing watercolor artist. You don't have to be an amazing watercolor artist to create beautiful, beautiful work, especially if you're doing what I do and using your colored pencil as your backup plan for anything that didn't quite work the way you wanted it to. So let's go ahead. I'm not going to start with the darks because I don't want to bleed those into it. Like if I were working in just colored pencil or even with Inktense, I would probably line out all of my darks first. But I don't want that to bleed into it. So I am just going to start with, let's get a base. It's kind of a shimmery peach color. So I'm going to grab, I don't even know what brushes I grabbed. You know, I've got these, came with the Faber-Castell Graphite Aquarelle. I love them for watercolor too. I use these for everything, at least for the base layer. So I've got an orangey tone, and I'm gonna pull a little bit of my pinky purple color in there that I used in the background. And that's gonna neutralize it a bit so it's not so orange in your face. This is gonna give me a much softer look, and I'm just mixing some water in with that. And if I want it really light, which I do, I'm going to mix a lot of water. And I always dab that. I just touch it to my paper towel before I start layering that in here. This is going to catch horribly on that paper right there. Now, I could have left white where there are some really shimmery white highlights. That would actually be a good place or a thing to use masking fluid for as well. But I have my PH Martin's Bleed Proof White. I can go back over it. I can be lazy, or I can use my colored pencils to be lazy. I still can't believe how flat this paper is to work. Like right now, this would normally be just bumpy and an absolute pain. I mean, okay, where I tore the paper isn't so hot to work on, but the rest of this is really nice. I'm so freaking excited right now. Man, and I've had these for years. Like I had them when I ruined the thing with the, I'm pretty sure I'd already bought them when I had the problem with that one painting I keep complaining about with the airbrush. That should have been the background color in there. I should have filled that in a bit more. Let's do that now. Just at least a little. It's kind of funny. It's like I got a new toy and I've had it for years. I just never used it. Now I am going over this with a slightly darker color, even though this will have white in it. I'm just going to layer my white on top of it. My main reason that I didn't just fill the background color and layer over everything is that I wanted this orangey color here and then this yellowy gold in here. I knew that if I painted blues and purples, like I'm never going to get that is back to the yellow. It's going to tint it too much. Speaking of yellow, let's go ahead and pull some of that in now. I'm going to go with, it's really more of an orange tone. So rinse that brush. I'm going to clean this spot though. It is very dirty. And I'm going to be putting gold over this later. This is a nice, really pretty warm yellow. So the way that I will think, and it's funny because I've heard, like, people will get into color theory where it's not technically a, I think of it as if it's closer to yellow on the color wheel, it's warm. As it moves closer to blue, it's gets cooler. More oranges get warm. But that's not always true because there are cool oranges, cool reds. So it's not always the way to look at it, but it's a very overly simplified and oftentimes inaccurate way to look at it. But the yellows, the way that I look at it as being more cool is where it has more of a green tint to it, or there's like a little bit of blue in it. This does not. This is closer to orange on the color wheel. It's a very warm color. And then again, I'm going to be putting gold over it. Well, I paint this in, story time about this fish. My old Betta, he disappeared. I hadn't seen him in weeks, and he had been slowing down. He was over a year. Which bettas do not live as long as they used to. They have terrible genes now. So it's very, very difficult. And he's in a planted aquarium. I mean, he's in a nice tank. But I hadn't seen him. And even when I looked, I couldn't find him anywhere. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get a new one. He obviously finally passed. It had been weeks. He wasn't coming out to eat, nothing. So weeks of not eating at this point. So I went and bought a new one. And I could do the water change so I could see if I could find the passed away fish. Yeah, no, he just has a swim bladder problem. So I'm currently trying to help him. I dewormed him. That didn't do it. So I'm not sure what he has a swim bladder problem for. But now I have two bettas. Well, I don't think the other one's going to make it because he doesn't eat anymore. He's got some challenges. I fasted him, so that's not the problem. Okay, let's see. But that's how I got this one, or why I got this one. And we just went to pick out any. He was actually really pretty, though. Okay, let's get... Now, when I do a watercolor underpainting, you can kind of see this is pretty messy. Like, it's not the... like, my lines, my edges aren't clean. I don't care because I'm going to fix that with colored pencil. That's one of the reasons that I'm loving working in watercolor. So one of the things I don't like about watercolor is that it is not forgiving. Like, it is one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult medium to master. I certainly wouldn't call myself a master by any stretch of the imagination. Again, I can make something pretty. We're going to get some little little section in here where he's got this darker color. I'm doing yellow first. I'll come back through with orange for the darker ones. But we can do something that is very pretty, but it's not, again, going by traditional, the way people usually paint with watercolors that are really good with that. But that's just too much pressure. I like my forgiving. I'm used to my forgiving mediums, acrylics, oils, even colored pencils I can really fix a lot. And I'm using that same magenta I used in the background. I'm going to use for this area under his gills. Oops, too dark. I'm going to add some more water to that. Where was I going with that story? Oh, this needs to connect about there. Anyway, the colored pencils, the reason that I'm loving watercolor now, though, is with colored pencil, it's so easy to fix things. I don't have to be some great watercolor master to produce a really pretty painting with watercolors. And it makes the colored pencil portion go a lot faster because I've already got this really nice base layer down. I've got a shadow in here. Or actually, I think it's his darker scales, but we'll use that purpley color. I'm going to use the purple for all of the dark areas first. And then I can come back through with black later, but this is going to help me. I'm going to get the hint of scales in here. You can see on that second photo I provided, we've got a lot of those scales, and you can really see the color in there, the shape. I'm going to go ahead, and we're going to use that orange color we mixed earlier. Gibson's sleeping and his feet are twitching. I think he's dreaming of running. We've got a little bit of a darker shadow here. And we can't clearly see all of these scales, but they do form in sort of rows. So I'm going to focus that shape as I come down. And if the color bleeds a little bit, it's okay in this, like, that is fine. It just gives it a softer look, and I am okay with that for this. I'm going to put some little lines here. You can't really see it in that photo, but there's a fin that's very translucent there, and then the other fin is over here. I'll come back there with a white pencil to touch that up. One of the things that I think ends up being very intimidating for a lot of people where they don't want to try a new medium is they feel like they're going to be starting from scratch. So you got to where you were really good with colored pencil. Now you've got to learn all over again with watercolor, all over again with acrylics. That's really not totally true. We've got some darker blotches in there. I'm just barely touching that. Because you've already learned at this point, if you've gotten pretty comfortable with another medium, that means you've also gotten pretty comfortable with understanding your lights and your darks, with understanding values, with drawing accurate, with noticing details. And once you get to where those elements you understand, you can apply that to any medium. It will not take you nearly, whatever medium you started off with, it will not take you that long to get good at another one. It's like you suddenly get to fast forward through a lot. Yeah, you still need to learn technique, but it goes so much faster when you've already, mastered or semi-mastered in another medium. So don't ever feel like, don't hold yourself back from trying something else thinking it's just going to be too hard. I need to, like, one thing that I've seen artists do a lot is think, well, I need to get really good at this one medium first. That is not true, because the things that make your artwork good, understanding composition, understanding values, understanding well, color to an extent, but values and composition are really the biggest thing. Noticing details, noticing if things are accurate. Those things apply across the board. So it doesn't matter which medium you're working in, you're constantly going to be getting better at those, even if you're jumping around a lot, trying a lot of different things. One of the things that happens, I know for me especially, I get bored. I don't want to just work in one medium. I just, well, it's boring. So don't hold yourself back. You can get good at a whole lot of mediums all at the same time. If you're someone who gets bored. I mean, you don't have to. It doesn't matter to use whatever you want, but I know a lot of artists will define themselves. I'm only a colored pencil artist. I'm only a this artist. I'm only a that artist. You don't need to be. So again, I'm adding these shadows with the purple, the same magenta I used in the background. And a lot of this is going to have black over it, but doing the purple first, it's going to give me a really nice, a lot more depth to that black. Plus, as I'm adding it over the yellows, I'm not going to be putting black over all of the yellow. A lot of that will just stay this purple color. Have I mentioned how excited I am about these dang boards? And they are expensive. That was one of the things that kind of held me back. But I'm like, when you add up how much money you spend in tape, how much money the paper is, and then you find out you just ruined paper because the tape didn't work. The staple, like, God, if you watch videos showing you how to do the staple and tape method, there's no world that I'm going to sit there and do that. Like, it is just not happening. So yeah, this is pretty exciting. Tells you how exciting my life is that I'm this excited about like an art supply thing. I don't get out much. Again, these are really black scales with some blue in it, but I'm just doing purple because it works. Now, this is a thing I can talk about color theory. Simplify your color palette. I've got all of these colors. I don't know if you can see it here. There are a ton of magentas all the way. So I've got red and it fades darker and darker closer to purple in the magentas. Pick one. You don't need to use 3. You don't need to use all of them. Pick one. I've got one magenta. I've got one orange and one yellow. I've got these yellows are a cooler yellow in this palette. I don't want to use the cooler yellows. I want the warmer ones. In this case, because that's what I chose. That's what I'm going with. I've got one blue that is I may pull the other turquoise to make it pop, or mix a little bit of green with the blue to get, actually that's probably what I'll do, is take that same blue but mix some of the emerald or like phthalo green in with it to get a turquoise that will work with this one. Or maybe I'll just leave him with yellows and no turquoise. I don't know, haven't decided yet. I actually might do that. But less colors make it easier to make things look good. When you start bringing in 3 blues, 4 greens, like, I mean, and I'm not saying there aren't ever times for that, but when you overdo and you're bringing in so many of these other colors, you definitely overcomplicate things, and that's where you're going to be more prone to getting a really muddy mess. Now, if you go with a super simplified palette, let's say you're just doing your red, yellow, or your red, green, God, brain work, red, blue, yellow, or magenta, yellow, purple, whatever it is. Then you want to make sure you're using specific colors that work well with each other, because sometimes if a color is too warm, you're not going to get purple when you mix it with your blue. You're going to get brown. So that would matter. But overall, having a more simplified palette really is going to make for a more cohesive painting than if you're trying to use too many different colors, too many yellows, too many magentas, too many everything. So we've got this dark fringe. I'm just going to use that same magenta. I'm worrying about my values and the shape, not the color, because I'm going to pull black over a lot of this with my pencils, most likely. Maybe with the watercolor, probably with the pencils, just to keep it easy. And the tail is very much like frilly, lacy fabric, or like silk. Something really lightweight, the way that it moves, the way that it folds. That's what we're looking at in a lot of this. So like this is one portion on the bottom of the body, but this is all one piece, but it's folding. So like right here, it curves and folds just like fabric. We've got a much darker area here. I'm pushing a little bit harder where I want that line to be thicker. Here, we've got the fabric folding that way. A little bit in here. And I don't need it to be exact to the photo, but I do want to just pay attention to how, I've got a little bit of masking fluid still there. How the fabric, think of it, it's sometimes easier to think of fish fins as fabric, or at least fish fins like this. Just watch how it folds. And these lines are all slightly curved. I don't have a lot of straight lines. That is going to look very man-made, very stiff. Most of these lines are very curved. Now, I want some variation in here too. Some of these I'm barely adding pressure, some I'm pushing a little bit harder so that I get a thicker line. But I want that variation. But see, having that background color, how I start already, it's starting to look like that fin has that translucence, transparency to it. That's the word I'm looking for. And this is going to be true with a lot of different fish that have the more like the side fins here. I want that background color showing because that fin is very, you can't even really see that fin in the photo. I'm actually painting it in because I want it there, but it's not so visible. Same thing over here. That one connects here. So I'm going a bit darker, a little less water, building up. This is, even with it wet, it's just drying so perfect. Really excited to try this on a bigger project now, because that's going to be the real test. Big ones are way more likely to warp than smaller papers. But I've never seen one stay this flat before. Like, this is like, wow. I often use the word game changer, but seriously, game changer. want to fill in too much of that blue poking through here. I want to make sure some of that shows. I'm softening that edge between where some of the masking fluid was. Now I need to use for the eye, it is just like black in that photo because of the way he was moving, but that eye is actually really pretty with a bit of teal and yellow. So I'm going to zoom in from my other photo. I'm going to rinse that brush off and start with the yellow. It's kind of a yellowy orange. And then we've got the actual teal color. Did I decide on what teal I wanted? Yeah, the same one I was using is actually pretty good. And that's the one that I used in the background. Got a little bit in here. I don't have a ton of water on this because I don't want it to bleed all over the place. I'm going to start pulling a little bit of that more. I need that to be lighter though. I don't like how dark that is, so I'm going to add a lot more water to it. Sop some of that up on my paper towel. There we go. Just get the hint of some of that teal color in there. And see how this starts to make him look like he's in the water more too, pulling some of that background color. So I had the background color with the purple, but I didn't have the blue yet. Now we're starting to get that in there. It's so funny, I can see how sloppy I was with that liner. I was in a rush when I did the, oh, that color. When I did the masking fluid, and it shows. It's pretty sloppy. This guy has teal here. Got a lot of teal in the tail. Yeah, I think the Auto Stretchers too, it's a really small company. Like I don't think he does sponsors or anything like that. It's just that good of a product that the people recommended it. And I've seen the few people since make videos, like the Mind of Watercolor. He's got a video using it. Like, and until I watched his the other night, I didn't even realize you were supposed to paint with it staying in the board. That's kind of interesting. And the thing that I'm liking about this, I can lift it, like I can move it so much easier than my board that it was taped to. It's actually more, it feels a little bit more like working on a canvas in that case. So yeah, I'm super like loving this a lot more than I expected to, that's for sure. Okay, I'm gonna start pulling a little bit of blue on some of the really dark areas. I'm not gonna go too crazy because he's only got a few highlights with this teal in there. Believe it or not, I did not choose him because of the teal. I couldn't tell he had teal in the store. It wasn't until he got under appropriate lights that I could really see it. That was just a happy accident. I have to be careful with this blue. I don't want to pull it too much into that yellow because I don't want to create a bunch of green. I actually don't want any green. Now here, I completely skipped, which one was I using? This one. I'm okay with some blue mixing in with this. I need to start getting this area. So it's really white on the photo, but I'm going to make mine be a bit darker in here. I'm just going to throw the hint of scales. I don't like how light it is on that photo. Let's see if this fin was dark at the end. I'm just using my finger to soften that up a little bit. Like this purple, I didn't just grab a new purple. I mixed the purple using the magenta I was already using and the teal blue I was already using. That is how I know I'm going to get a teal, like a bluish purple color that is perfect, that is going to just mix perfectly with the rest of the piece because I'm mixing from what I've already used from a limited color palette. I think that is a good way to simplify color theory. Around that eye, a few little lines here. I'll definitely be doing a lot of black in there. His mouth, and I'm going to soften that a bunch with white colored pencil later, so it's not going to stay that harsh. Yeah, when you see him in person in the photo, it looks like his body's really light all the way through. In person, from about here back is actually just really dark. You don't notice all those highlights without the light being on it like that. But like when you look at him like under more natural lighting. So I'm making mine dark. Okay, I'm going to pull along here. I want that to start getting a bit darker, but I want it more with magenta than with blue. So I'm going to rinse my brush. I'm going to pull up the magenta, make kind of a fresh batch of that over there. And I always, the thing that you can't see is I'm always dabbing. Okay, this microphone is poking me. There we go. I'm always dabbing it on a paper towel before I hit the paper so I don't end up with a big, thick, ugly line. I'm just going to soften that, pull that in. This is where I'm going more by what I think will look nice on my painting versus what the reference photo has. I'm not even going to use black with watercolor. I think I'm just going to use my colored pencil with that. It'll be just so fast and so easy, and I don't have to worry about it bleeding where I don't want it to do. Now, one thing I should have done, see how I've got this harsh mark right here? I shouldn't have left, it was too harsh with my my masking fluid. What I should have done, and I'll still hide it with the pencils and such going back and over it, but what I should have done is just let it fade out into streaks. So now I'm having to fight that. Not that it can't be hidden, but still, it'd be easier if I wouldn't have gone straight, like left that harsh mark. Okay, let's pull the purples and the teals where the darks are going to be in this fin. So this is the fin along his back. Oops, I need more water for sure. That is not flowing very nicely. I'm sticking my finger right there because I had too much of a, like when I stopped, it left a big droplet. I don't really want that to build up there. So these dots are something that I do every time I paint fins. I always have the white dots so that it just makes them look a little bit more sparkly at the tips of the fins. Not because it's accurate, you're not really seeing that on the fish, but it makes them sparkly. Marie said, harsh streak. Does that mean apply the masking fluid much lighter there? No. Light, thick didn't matter. It's because it was a harsh edge. So what I should have done is right here. See how I just made a harsh shape right there? Now I'm finding that shape. So what I should have done, when I put the masking fluid in, I should have pulled some streaks coming down so it was more streaky than that, like just two angles right there is just too much of a harsh start. Like you can see the start and stop between the masking fluid. If I would have made it streaky, so it doesn't matter if it's too thick or too thin, it's a matter of being streaky. Break up that edge so it's not just like where the masking fluid is, where the masking fluid isn't. You want it to blend more like this, be more streaky. And I definitely need to pull purple in and clean up these edges with the yellow because I was so sloppy with the masking fluid. I should have just gone a bit more slow, thinner lines, work flat. I was trying to do this at the easel. You'll see tomorrow because I'm going to record. I did record part of using the masking fluid. I'm trying to hold it with one hand and do it so it could be on camera because it needed to be flat, but my camera wasn't where I needed it to be to record flat. I'm just full of the excuses. I'm going to choose to call them reasons. As long as you know, like if something doesn't come out quite how you wanted it to be, just know why. I think that that is so important. I mean, like here where the tape paper, and aren't you glad, or I'm glad that I didn't just give up and call it quits. Oh, my paper kind of is rough there. No, we're working to, you can't even tell. I could still sell this. You cannot tell that something was wrong there. Well, you guys can because you know, but there's, you know, it's fine. But when something goes wrong, troubleshoot and understand why. Don't get frustrated and just throw it out. You need to know why something happened and just, I mean, think it through. In that case, I could tell, it's like, okay, what's wrong in this moment? Why would paper tear? Paper tears when it's wet. Is it still wet? I could feel it. It's cold. There's my problem. Like 99% sure, 98% sure that that's why that paper tore right there. Because I've never had it happen before. But because I was trying to go so quickly and I did have so much water on there since I was testing the board, I didn't make sure that it was dry first. Troubleshoot and know why so that you can make sure it doesn't happen again. Anytime something goes wrong, try to figure out why. Because that is so important for future pieces. Like this one's not a big deal to me. I'm not working on some big, amazing project that needs to be perfect. I mean, I want it to be pretty, of course, but I don't care if it's perfect. There's a lot of stuff. The way the paper, I would do a lot of things differently if I was taking more time. This is more of a test project for me, but at the same time, especially in test projects, when something might not have come out right, you need, like, this is the time you want to have that happen so that you don't have that happen on a bigger, like a more detailed project that you're spending weeks on and trying to get perfect. Notice how slow I'm going for most of these streaks. Don't like sit and just really quick throw in a million lines. Take your time, make sure it's where the lines and the details are where you want them to be. Now here's a great example of that area on the photo. It's really more orange. I happen to have the right value of purple. I'm going with purple because it's already on my brush because I'm lazy. But the values are what matter, not so much what the color is, and not that big of a deal. Now that said, I am going to pull some more pinks in there. I'm going to tone that down because that is really flat looking. So let's go ahead. I'm going to dry this. Okay, I lied. I am going to use the black watercolor paint. And the reason for that is because I'm going to be using my Schmincke, my Aqua bronze stuff. I want that golden tint. Some of that gold I want to overlap over some of the black. Not all of it, but some of it. And I cannot overlap that over the black of the colored pencil. So I am going to be pulling some black with the watercolor in this. But one of the things, I want to tint the color. Do I want it that white? I don't think I do. I think I want like an orangey tint to it. Just make sure it's really dry. And I'm just going to go a little bit with that orange I used earlier. A lot of water. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and start doing some of the black. Where is my, there's my black. I don't want a ton of water on this because I do want this to be pretty dark. So we can start with part of the eye. And I'm going to do a lot of dotting because it's not a perfect circle in there. You've got different little bits of lighter colors showing through on the eye. So I'm doing little lines, little dots. So that it's not just so perfectly straight, like perfect circles. I don't want that. Okay. Now this black, I'm going to start pulling more around the body here. Oop, too much water. Let's touch my paper towel, soak some of that up. Same thing, continuing that through here. As we get in this area, we start getting a lot more with that black. But be careful because this isn't easy to fix if you overdo it. I mean, we're going over with colored pencil, so you can fix it to an extent, but it's going to make your life much easier if you just take your time here. Fixing my reference photo really quick. Okay. So I'm going to clean up this edge and I'm going to pull that black back, following the direction of the scales though. Again, the harder you push, the thicker that line will be. So as I move through, I'm going to get lighter and lighter. And I'm going to pull that, let's see, a little bit in here and then right in here. And then we've got a few of those lines. Now I need more water. I want to remind you, I'm not an expert at watercolor and it doesn't matter. You can, and the reason I keep pulling that or pointing that out is just to give you confidence. You don't have to be amazing with watercolor to make really pretty watercolor papers like or paintings. I'm super happy with how this guy's coming out. Now, a real, like somebody who uses watercolor traditionally, like they're doing all the proper techniques to the way that it's normally done, is going to be cringing at my techniques. And this is true with whatever medium you're working on. No matter what it is, you're going to have someone cringing at your techniques. Did the finished painting come out pretty? Did you like the finished painting? That's what matters. Now, the technique matters, you know, if you're not happy with your results, for sure. But if you like the results you're getting, then there's nothing wrong with doing something not traditional. You know, as long as you're not messing up the archival quality of it. So like we don't want to put acrylics on top of oils or watercolor on top of colored pencil. Although technically you can do a trick with colored pencil, like with white or whatever. You can put lines and details with a colored pencil, and then when you paint with watercolor, the watercolor doesn't really stick to it. So you could do it that way with the intent of the watercolor not sticking to it. So, but like the way that we're doing here, we want to make sure it's done separately. I'm not necessarily making new lines. A lot of what I'm doing is going over the purpley ones that I already did. Some of them are new, but a lot of this is just over the purple. Now, one of the reasons I think this piece will come out so nice is because it's a pretty angle. It almost is like he's dancing, that flow. And when ladies wear those super fancy dresses, those long ones, and the dance looks so pretty because the skirts are so long, that is, I think, why this one works so well. So a lot of the photos, with fish especially, the fish is going to be side view. Now, that doesn't mean you can't include side view fish, especially if you've got multiple fish in a painting. It makes sense that you're going to have a lot of them on the side. Make sure you get some angled differently, these more interesting angles. So if you ever go to an aquarium and you're trying to take photos yourself, your goal is to get some of these more interesting angles. It really makes a difference because it'll take them from looking flat to having so much more depth. Not pushing super hard here. I don't want this to be as dark. So we've got this really dark area here. But most photos that you'll see, the fish is flat because the photographer is usually trying to like catch the whole fish, but it ends up making them look really flat. So if you're trying to find photos yourself, these are always the angles that I want, the dancing movement. So I'm looking for those really dark ones. You don't want the yellow and the black really overlapping much, unless I'm just trying to cover the black. But if it's like a light, more translucent color, I'm just going to get a muddy, ugly, greenish brown. So I'm looking at the areas that are a bit darker. Now, you wouldn't even need to use masking fluid on this one. Like, it would have been not that hard to do something very similar. It's not like I did some crazy complicated background or anything. The reason that I wanted to test to see if the paper would warp with it, because that I always warp with masking fluid or buckle with it. It did not. Have I mentioned in like the last 10 minutes how excited I am about these stretcher things? I thought I wouldn't like my hand resting on it. It doesn't bother me at all. I thought I was going to be more comfortable if it was flat. It doesn't matter. It's no different than using a maul stick. You just want something that your hand can rest on, and this has not been a problem at all. Now, some of this, I just want this pale gray tone. So you might think, especially if you come from working with acrylics or oils, like, oh, I want a gray tone, I'm going to mix black and white. No, we do not want to mix white in with this. I'm just going to use black, but really thinned down black, like a decent amount of water. And then I'll just lightly brush that over. So again, we want to be able to see that background purple. I'm just getting this grayish light tone. A little bit more darks in here. Again, that's that grayish tone, so we're darkening in it, but you can still see the color through it. A lot of water. Lily said, where were your lights positioned and the camera? It was my natural light, so it was on my, he was in the quarantine, or the hospital tank is what I call it, which now my other Betta is in, so he doesn't have to swim as far to get to the surface since his swim bladder has issues. But anyway, point is, it was a small 4-gallon tank. It's not like a normal size tank, and just a square. It was only like my oven light was on up above here. So the tank is here, the oven light is over here, and then window light was coming from this direction. It was not super bright light. It would be better if it was brighter. And that's probably part of why this, you know, if I had more light in the room at the time, I think this photo would have been a lot clearer. But yeah, it was just natural daylight in there. And my oven light, or the range light, whatever you call it. I'm not going to be doing much with colored pencil on it, just a few little areas to clean up. This is a side fin, and I'll touch that up with colored pencil. Then this is the bottom one. Okay, I think the rest of this, I'm going to go ahead and switch over. I'm going to dry this. We're going to do the gold and then the last bits with the colored pencil. Almost done with this. I still can't get over how flat this paper is. I am not going to be shutting up about that anytime soon. Oh, I didn't see the question before. So your fish is behind glass in the water. Yes, he was behind glass. How do you not get glass in the reflection? My camera is nearly touching the glass, if not actually touching the glass, is the easiest way to do it. Sometimes you have to position yourself differently. Like my bearded dragon take is great. A great example of that. Oh, hi, you're still awake. It's really difficult. I don't know if you can see behind me. There. So that tank is so difficult to get good photos of. I usually have to open the door for him because the reflection is terrible. Sometimes if you use your body can block out the reflection. If it's dark, like a dark enough area, but light on the outside edge. So like if I'm at a zoo and there's glass, sometimes I can get between me and Matt, use our bodies to block the glass enough. Like we had to do that when I took photos of a tiger recently, or not recently, it was like a year ago. But he was up really close. I couldn't put my camera up against the glass because he was against the glass. That wouldn't have worked. So we had to stand back, but we used our bodies to create enough of a dark shadow that you really couldn't see that much in the way of the reflection. And then when I edit it in Lightroom, you can use the dehaze filter will really help, like change the dehaze, and clarity can make a big difference with that. Sometimes it depends on how bad it is, but yeah, usually we use our bodies in that case. But in this case, I was right in front of it, so my body's already blocking the definite glass, and I was able to get my camera right up against the glass. So those two things are typically how I do that. But the light was not coming from here. If the light was coming this way, that again, our bodies could have helped, but the light in this case were coming from two different sides. One artificial light here, and then the daylight coming from the other side. I should have read both your comments before I try to answer. Okay, so now we've got the Schmincke, and I already have a bunch of the gold. I just need to reactivate. You can see on my little palette, so I'm just going to use that. Let's move you guys out of the way. And I'm going to use my clean the brush water because this makes a huge mess. Do I have a small filbert? Oh, I probably should have stood up before this. My back's saying, well, my back is giving me the finger at the moment. Not that bad, though.
Not as bad as last week. None of you are really what I'm looking for. I guess you could, you know, you're kind of big. Maybe you. You're not a quality brush. You're a super cheap acrylic brush, but for what I need, I think you'll work. Will this reactivate? It may not. I actually don't know. Kinda. I've not tried to reactivate the gold. Yeah, it does. It just takes a little bit more work. I'm glad I didn't use a good brush for this because I'm kind of digging that in there to reactivate that gold. I'm going to use a different brush than to paint it on. I'm going to wipe that off. Okay. Which brush do I want to use? Thanks, Aline. She said, the background is so amazing. Love the color combo. Thank you. I was just experimenting. I really didn't know what I was going to do on that when I started. So I'm wiping the gold. Now you can't really see what I'm doing, but when you tilt it, when the light hits it, that's when you start seeing this really pretty shimmery color. But when you look at it straight on, you can't really tell. I'm mostly going to focus over where the yellow is. I need to be careful not to drag this through the black, reactivate it, because my black might not be dry all the way. I don't want to drag that into the yellows. Now the reason that I chose the colors, the magenta, because I knew I had the yellows and the golds that were going to go into this. I chose the magenta because it just looks pretty with yellows and oranges. So that's just an easy way to know. Like if you're using yellows and oranges, magenta is always going to look good. But I also got kind of bored with, like when I was doing just the magenta, I'm like, well, I want something else. So let's throw some blue in it too. That was the extent of my thought process there. And I want a shimmery, I need more water though. Just a little bit of a shimmery color over this, so when you turn the paper, you get just right in there. I am dabbing this on my paper towel so it doesn't get too crazy. Except for this line because I need something thicker right there. I don't want to cover everything. I want a lot of that background showing through. I'm definitely using this on the body. Remember, anywhere where I go over this with colored pencil is going to look very, very flat. So keep that in mind if you are going to be using color. I mean, you can finish it off with just watercolor. You don't have to use colored pencil. I'm just going to because I'm lazy and it let me be, well, lazy through a lot of this, knowing that I could touch things up with the pencils. I'm going to throw in some scales here with that gold. Definitely going to throw gold on that fin to get that shimmery look. And this fin too. Not that you can really tell it's a fin because it's super translucent. So as we turn this, you can see where our shimmer is. Not so much on the body, it's not standing out that much. Definitely going to go over this darker patch on his little cheek, even though that's more orange. I can come through with some orange with the pencils, but I just want to get more shimmer. Definitely need to pull some on this fin. See, I'm not covering the whole thing. I'm mainly hitting that outer edge. And you won't see it all the time. It just depends on the angle that you look at it and the way the light's hitting. Okay, I think I'm good with the watercolor. I'm going to go ahead and switch to colored pencils. So rinse that brush. Baby Panda said, how are your brushes stored? I could hear they were in a canvas wrap. Or weren't in a canvas wrap. I have a canvas wrap, but that can actually damage them all in its own. With the watercolor brushes, they're really, they're very moody. I have a drawer in my big work table, and they're just sitting loose in that. So I leave them on the table flat to dry, but once they're dry, I put them in that drawer and try to have nothing pushing on the bristles themselves, which isn't obviously going to be the case for everybody. Not everyone's going to have like a table with a drawer in their work area, but that seems to be working pretty good for me. The canvas, you have to be careful because if that folds wrong, it really forces them out of shape. If you ever are in a position where you're able to get yourself, like if you've got a decent size of like a full bedroom to use as an art studio, oh, is that, no, that's fine. The workbenches, I was looking at workbenches, there's a name for them and I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I was looking for at those. They were super expensive and they weren't very big. So like Madine, whatever that brand is, they had one that was kind of neat on wheels, but they're just, they just weren't what I like. They didn't fill the space out the way I wanted. This is an art, like I got it on Wayfair. I think Amazon has them too, but it's just a kitchen island. And it's so amazing. I've got cabinets, I've got storage all over it. It is so much better. And it was cheaper. Like I want to say it was under $400, which you're thinking, wow, that's really expensive. Yes, but the ones made for art were like $600 and they were smaller and didn't have as much storage. So obviously if you're in a smaller space, a kitchen island is not going to be as good, but they have smaller kitchen islands too. My old one that I used to use was technically like a small, much smaller kitchen island. But I strongly recommend that over, if you've got the space, if you've got a whole room, investing in that is like a craft table or an art table. Like there's not a place for your knee. No, technically the back of it, you could sit with a bench with your knee out. I've got mine backwards though, so that wouldn't work. But it's not like a table where you're going to pull up a chair to it. It's more for where I'm standing. But my gosh, that thing is amazing. And it was cheaper. So, you know, already I'm a big fan. Looking for purple. So I've got my polychromos black, which is mainly what I'm going to be using. Let's grab some heather. I want purple if I can find it, but I don't know where I put them. I've got pencils all over the room. I really need to clean up in here. I've got white, heather, black. Where did I put purple? Like, I know you exist, but where do you exist? Also, I need a blue that's kind of close to that background color to clean up my edge. So I'll look for that. I find polychromos usually work better for, that's probably close enough. I'll grab a couple of these. Whoops. For color matching edges when I've used watercolor like this. Still looking for purple. It's probably up on my workbench. How am I missing it? I thought I had a new one out. It's dark down here, so it might be right in front of my face and I'm just not seeing it. Yep, it was. Okay, I have to figure out how to get my butt off the floor. Oof. without my knee going out. Hey, done. Okay. So, don't have a ton of pencils. Let's see. Teresa said, painting with the gold was French fry, not tuna. My bad. Huh? Oh, yeah. She said, reading the first one, is that gold the same gold you used on the acrylic painting of tuna, or French fry in this case? Can you use that over acrylics too? No. Watercolor is not going to stick to acrylics. Acrylics are a plastic, so it's just not going to grip. It's not going to stay long term. The gold in that case was actually the gold, it came that way. Fredericks for a while had made this whole line of gold canvases. They sold out to Blick. I don't know if Fredericks is going to be good anymore. Just like a disclaimer here, I have no idea if the quality of Fredericks canvases is going to still be good, because they sold to, oh, who was it? McPherson's. McPherson's just went out of business, and that was one of the brands they sold over to Dick Blick. I know I don't like Dick Blick canvases. I don't know how this is going to go with the Fredericks, so I'm not going to be like, go out and get Fredericks canvases, because I genuinely have no idea what the quality is going to be. I've been getting the Fredericks, like, still, the stuff that I have is my old stuff that was the original Fredericks, so I really don't know, like, moving forward what the best canvases are going to be for that. But let's say I wanted to paint a gold canvas. I need to do a whole lesson just on this. I would first start by painting it yellow oxide with maybe a little bit of magenta in it, paint it solid, and then I would take Liquitex. They make metallic paints. Then I would paint the metallic. The reason I put a base color of another color first, base that's not shiny, is that the metallics have a tendency to be fairly translucent. So if I do it first, so if you don't know what we're talking about, there's a painting I did of my Parrotlet French fry where it's was painted over a gold canvas. But you can make your own gold canvas by getting whatever canvas, make sure it's gessoed, and then paint it a solid, like, gold-ish color. So magenta and yellow ochre would probably be the color I would use to mix that, get a solid color. Then I would paint the Liquitex. They do make metallic paint. Paint that over it, and now you've got a nice gold canvas that you can paint over, or, the way that I did that painting. Okay. So this is actually pretty simple. I'm just going to do a little bit of details, and we'll wrap this up after I sharpen my pencils. So I've got my Derwent Light Fast Purple. I've got Derwent Light Fast White. I've got a couple of, this color looks pretty good. This is Ultramarine. It's a little dark. Do I have a light Ultramarine out? I just want to clean up those edges a little bit. Yeah, that actually works. And I'm just pushing hard. I'm not going to, you can use OMS when you've done watercolor, but I don't want to because I'm lazy. And so I'm just burnishing. I'm just pushing pretty hard on that. But OMS works just fine over watercolor. It won't reactivate it or do anything. Just clean those edges a little bit. Okay. And then the black, white, purple, and I've got my Light Fast Heather. So I can get some lines through there. Oh yeah, I wanted to pull a little bit more with the teal. I meant to grab that. That usually is my Caran d'Ache. They've got a lighter aqua color that typically shows up pretty well. This is turquoise. So anywhere where I want, I'm going to use that turquoise where I want to highlight. Now remember, if you go over an area with gold, I've still got masking fluid on here, I didn't get off all the way. If you've got an area with gold, it is going to cover the gold, and the gold will now be dull. You're not going to have that shiny look, so just watch where you decide to put that. I'm not going too crazy with that. I'm going to pull a little bit in here in the scales. And I love this color with the Caran d'Ache because it's super opaque. So it's kind of my go-to. I don't know why I said kind of. It is my go-to anytime I want teal or blue highlights, like when I do that around the edges a lot. Okay, for black. Same thing. If I go over the gold, it's going to look really dull and really flat. So just be aware of that where you choose to put it. So I'm mostly working around where a lot of that was. Let's go with white here. Whoops, broke my tip. Pushing really hard to get that to show up nicely. What is this line? Oh, this was for that fin and it doesn't look right. So let's just cover that with heather. Oops, that's not heather. That is black. It just looked weird. A few little lines coming down for this fin to make it show up better. Now I'm noticing that the paper, when I stretched it like that, it gave it a little bit more tooth. I am freaking loving it. The colored pencil is sticking, like it's gripping almost like the Inktense. Maybe not quite as much because Inktense is really grippy. It's got more tooth to it. This roughed it up. It's still smooth, but just enough the pencils are coming out super, super opaque over there, like more than I would expect. I'm going to pull a few highlights shiny on here. Notice that they're curved. I'm really liking the effect with that. I wasn't sure because I could tell that it felt kind of, well, more toothy. And I am liking it. I'm going to clean up that edge with the black, but then I'm going to pull black down so it doesn't just look like a line. I don't want to go too crazy with the darks in here, but I do want a little bit. I'm just making these a little bit thicker with some of those black areas. That's the other little fin. I'm going to use purple for some of the dark so it fades from the black into the purple just because it gives it more depth. Even though my reference photo technically only really is black there, I just love the look of purples more for shadows. Definitely need white in here. This is really going to help break up where I left that harsh line from the masking fluid. Another spot where masking fluid didn't get lifted all the way. I'm a pro. I'm going to pull some of that white up in here too. And it's just such a small amount that I'm doing with the colored pencils, but I feel like it just cleans everything up so nicely. This is too blotchy. I want circles, but not that blotchy. There we go. Oh, and out of focus, I'm sorry. Hopefully when I replace it with a good camera, it'll be in focus the whole time. You never know though. Pushing really hard with this white. You know what? I want a coral type color. There's one that Caran d'Ache Luminance has that I really like, kind of a peach coral. Not that one. Well, this will work too. I've got a couple polychromos I'll grab. There's the color I'm looking for. So this is that Aqua, I don't know. Caran d'Ache likes to make their writing so little I can't even read it, but I want to pull a little bit of this color in here. I also need a little bit of more of an orangey color. I should grab one of those while I was up. Let's go with polychromos. Yeah, you'll work. See, this is the funny, I'm just grabbing colors. I'm like, yeah, your orange will work. That is color theory. Like, that is my color theory for you. It's not that big of a deal. Don't overcomplicate it up for yourself. So this is orange. What color is it actually? Medium, cadmium orange. Back to that pink coral color. And I'm working with the scales I already have drawn. I'm not inventing new ones. I'm going to pull this into the body and a little bit into the fin because it will look weird if it's just right there. Not too much, just a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to use my purple. Let's get a little bit of the deeper shadows in a couple of spots here. I am not pushing super hard. Actually, let's use Heather to lighten this up. If Heather doesn't lighten it up enough, I'm going to throw a little bit of white. Yeah, we'll use a little bit of white in there just to soften that. I want to go back to that anther, whatever, the coral. We're just going to call it coral. Her little mouth. I'm going to put white over this to just tone that down. Okay, I'm going to go back to some black. Watch the direction, watch how these curve, which direction they're moving in. I don't need them to be exact, but we still want to follow the general movement there. I use purple to pull that shadow through the body. What is, hold on, what is someone yelling at me about? Hold on, let me just tell her I am live streaming. Pull a few more highlights in here. This is actually not white, is it? It is silver gray, Karen Dosh, let me know if that works. It's light, that's all that matters. Okay, am I done? I think I'm done. Let me look on, sometimes when you look through, okay, that camera needs to have the light adjusted. The live stream is actually more accurate in color than this one is. I'm gonna have to change that for the final one. Okay, let's throw a few more. Now make sure too with the fins that it's not just lines. Like look at how it's broken up and clumpy. That's important. Yeah, I like how this looks, how he is. I want this fin to be more obvious that it's a fin over here, that it's super short. I'm gonna throw that in there. So it's not like, why is this side fin? That's not the side fin, that's his back fin. But it just makes it make a little bit more sense. I'm gonna pull some heather in there so it looks a little bit more translucent. Sit in a couple of spots. Okay, and then sign it. And I'm going to sign right here. Okay, now let's see how flat it is when we take it out. So this is the next thing that I wanted to find out is how the paper looks when we pull it out of this. Where is my little tool? My little key thing that I lost. There it is. Is it this size? So we're just going to unscrew these, loosen them up. They don't have to take it all the way. You just have to loosen them a bit. I think it's stuck on there. It was. Okay, again, just loosening these up a little bit. Last one. And it just comes right off like no problem, and it is flat like that. I used so much water and let it set, and like it is, there's nothing. It is like a perfect sheet of paper. I can't believe how well that, like, I mean, I thought it'd be better than what I was doing. I didn't think it was going to be like, this just solved all my problems. The masking fluid didn't warp, the insane amount of water I used on this and then let it set again. Like, I cannot believe how perfectly flat that paper is. So yeah, I definitely would recommend those stretcher bars because wow. And it didn't bleed that bad. I mean, I guess I didn't use that much paint. I used more water than I used paint. But yeah, there is the finished project, and I cannot get over, this is the board. It's like a foam board that you put the wet thing on, and you just slide these over it. But holy crap, that is, yeah, I'm using the word, it's a game changer. Like, it's so flat. How are you so flat? That's not always a compliment for everybody. But yeah, I'm honestly shocked at how perfect if you could see what masking fluid has done to this exact same paper. Masking fluid always warps it a lot. Nothing. There's not a single, nothing. It didn't buckle even a little. There's some dog hair. But it's like the only warp is where the, because there's a gap in the corners, there's like a little bump right here where the corner wasn't holding it in place. This is a freaking genius design. Yeah, I apologize to your wallets because it's not a cheap thing. You can get one small piece or one and then cut it down. But yeah, the one thing that I did not realize when I went into buying this, I had no idea that you painted with them on there. Like, that was actually kind of shocking to me when I saw the Mind of Watercolor guy painting in it. And I'm thinking, I thought you just like stretched it and then just taped it to a board or whatever so the paper wouldn't shrink back. But no, you paint with it in it. And the thing that I really didn't think I'm just sticking them back together. The thing I thought that I really would not like was the edges, my hand being raised because I like to work with colored pencil flat. I didn't even notice as I was working, it didn't bother me at all. I thought it would. It didn't even cross my mind that it was a problem as I was working. So it was definitely a make-believe problem in my head that didn't exist, because when I started working, it wasn't noticeable that my hand was lifted. Like, it didn't. Yeah, that was definitely a non-issue. You could definitely, for airbrushing in the future, when I'm using a lot of airbrush paint for colored pencil pieces, definitely going to be doing this. The only thing is you need to have the right size for your board. So I thought, and I'm glad I didn't get this. I was originally like, oh, I'll just get the one big size, stretch big pieces of paper and then cut it from there. Now that may help. I'm not sure if it'll be as good as this. I would think so, because this keeps it flat. I mean, it's better than taping your work down, obviously, as you're going. But you definitely, it seems like you would want several different sizes depending on the project that you plan to work on. So I got the one medium. My only complaint, I do wish it was a more standard size, so I could just grab like an 11 by 14 and toss it in, but it's like 11 by 15, which is not so helpful for me. So you have to cut your paper a bit larger than your standard size. That's my only real complaint. But there it is all back together. So it doesn't take long to do. But my only, oh, I didn't have that in all the way apparently. My only real complaint was that I don't know, I don't understand why it wouldn't be a standard size. I'm gonna have to go read his website. I bet you there's a reason that I'm not getting. So I'd have to get bigger sheets, cut it to the size, but you want it the exact size of the board inside of it. You do not, I found that out from the one that warped. Even if it was a little bit larger, it caused a problem. It did both. Yeah, it's like a hard foam board. It's a thicker than normal foam. It is a foam board, but not like the one you'd get at like Walmart or Hobby Lobby. Like this thing is, it's hard, really hard. And it's got like I don't want to say waterproof, but it's got a coating on it for sure. I mean, I guess kind of like foam board, but it's not like normal foam board is more papery, where if you got water on it, it would mess it up. Doesn't seem to be well, obviously not, because I used a ton of water with it. Not a problem. But yeah, I did, I soaked them again in distilled water for 11 minutes. That one actually probably soaked a little bit longer. Lay down, Gibson. That one soaked a little bit longer because I was messing with the big, did I do the big one first? One of them soaked a little bit longer. I don't remember which one, but about 10 minutes soaking in the distilled water and then stuck it on in that. I don't know if the water needs to be distilled, but you know, let's just not mess with my city water. Yeah, definitely would recommend it. And again, with masking fluid, if you're going to use masking fluid, this little pen guy made my life way easier. So I recommend that one too. The masking fluid I used tonight, this is just my Winsor & Newton. This one was a colorless one, but it did have a yellowy tint to it. Usually I go with the one that has a tint to it. The problem is sometimes that tint, the color, will stain the paper. I have had that happen. It's always been minor, so it's not a big deal, but sometimes that happens with the colorless one, or the colored ones. So just so you're aware of it. I think that's it. Let me know, message me, whatever, post on Facebook or Discord what you'd like to see next. I think that's it. I don't know. I don't think there was anything else I needed to say. So thank you guys for joining, and I will see you guys next week. Well, in the meantime, I've got stuff. Oh, I will be uploading this with the better footage, assuming it even was better footage, because it looked like actually the live stream camera actually looked like perfectly clear. So I may not need to upload. I'll double check it, but I may not need to upload the different footage because that looked weirdly like very, very accurate, because I wasn't doing a lot of teeny tiny detail. So I may not change out the camera because I don't think it needs to. Anyway, that is it. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you, well, online this week. Bye.